This morning, a government shutdown sidestepped, for now. Congress passing an extension of federal funding for 45 days.
Oh man, I'm sure they're going to figure this thing out in 45 days and definitely not shut down the government. If you're like me, you might be wondering why every couple years we all have to play this stupid game of chicken where we wait to find out if the government is going to self-destruct or not. If we take a peek at the Wikipedia page, you can see that this happens weirdly often for something that should literally never happen. So what's going on here? Let's do a super quick history recap. Earlier this year, we were about to hit the debt ceiling again. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy made a deal with President Biden to pass the Fiscal Responsibility Act, which, gotta love these names. That raised the debt limit, but then set spending caps for the next couple of years. It also did a bunch of weird stuff like cutting funding to the IRS, which seems dumb because the IRS is the thing that brings in money for the government, but whatever. Now it's time to actually pass the budget, but the Republicans don't want to stick to the deal. They want to make some, frankly, unrealistic spending cuts beyond what they already agreed to, and they want to shut down the government to make their point. Speaker McCarthy passed a resolution to keep the government open for another 45 days while those negotiations happen. That made the other Republicans really angry, so they kicked out their own speaker as revenge for not shutting down their own government, which is incredible. Just truly incredible. So there's two problems here, right? There's the debt ceiling, which started this whole mess, and then there's this larger ideology of spending cuts. Let's talk about the debt ceiling first. So every year, we all pay some of our money to the government through taxes. That money becomes revenue that the government can spend. Congress passes laws that spend the money. The difference between our revenue and our spending is called the deficit. If we spend more than we pull in from taxes, the Treasury has to issue bonds to make up the difference, and then that becomes debt. So if we spend $10 million, but we only bring in $9 million in taxes, then the Treasury gets the remaining $1 million by selling bonds. Okay, back to the debt ceiling. Congress set up a maximum limit to how much money the Treasury is allowed to borrow. Once they hit the limit, they can't borrow anymore, and the government bank account goes to zero. That means that government employees, contractors, and citizens who are owed money can't get it, because there's just no cash available. A lot of the world's economy is based on the concept that the US dollar is a stable investment, so it's really, really dangerous for us to mess around with this. Here's why the whole thing is extra ridiculous. When Congress writes a law, the Congressional Budget Office will tell them exactly how much it will cost. So if they want to pass a law, and the CBO says it will cost $1 million, then there's only two choices. They have to either find a revenue source of $1 million, usually by raising taxes, or accept that we're going to have to take on $1 million in debt. If you want to spend the money, those are the only choices. If Congress passes a law without covering the cost, then that law is authorizing the borrowing. They can't act surprised later when they have to borrow the money. You'll always hear people talk about how the debt ceiling is authorizing more and more spending, but that's just straight up not true. The spending has already been authorized. We're just talking about borrowing money that was already approved for borrowing. This is why the whole thing is absurd. In a sane country, you don't need a debt ceiling. Your opportunity to care about the cost of a law is when you pass the law. You don't pass a law and then pass a second law later that says, no, I really meant it the first time. If you want the national debt to be lower, then you need to raise taxes or spend less money by passing laws. Your solution is literally never to just default on payments that we've already committed to. Congress doesn't get to act shocked, just shocked, every couple years when the laws that they passed have the price tag that they authorized. We're playing a game of chicken with the global economy every couple years so that people who pretend to be fiscally responsible can cry about spending that they already approved, and I just... Deep breaths. Okay, we all know the debt ceiling is a ridiculous system, but we can all at least agree that we need to cut down on our spending, right? Right? So the debt ceiling itself is totally indefensible, but you'll still hear people complain about spending all the time. And that's where we get to the larger problem with austerity politics. Of course we don't want to waste money. Everybody already agrees on that. But if something is an investment, it's not a waste. I might spend some money to build a factory and then use that factory to make a bunch of stuff and recover back my investment. Then it's not a waste, right? This is really basic stuff. The question we should be asking when we pass bills isn't, but how will we pay for it? It's, is this a good investment? Here's some examples. Building the interstate highway system was incredibly expensive, over $500 billion in today's money. But if we never made the interstate, would America be remotely as successful as it is today? We made that investment back many times over. Like literally, we've generated at least $6 in economic productivity for every $1 we spent. Passing the Clean Air and Water Act cost a lot of money too, but now we have, what was it? Oh right, Clean Air and Water. In 2020, the Clean Air Act by itself prevented 200,000 early deaths. Those are people who get to continue contributing to the economy and this country. Public schools are really expensive. Should we shut down schools to save some money in the short term? Of course not, because that would doom us in the long run. If something is a good investment, we can find a way to pay for it. When someone asks, but how will we pay for it? It's actually really easy to answer. We can raise taxes or, God forbid, borrow the money. Heck, we can even print money. Now, all of these things have trade-offs, right? People don't like it when you raise their taxes. Borrowing money means we have to pay interest in the future, and printing too much money can be dangerous too. But every single action a government ever takes has trade-offs. There is no perfect policy with only positive impacts and no downsides. So when some conservative goes on TV and asks, but how will we pay for it? What they're really saying is, I don't think it's worth investing in this. The benefit just isn't worth the cost. When Republicans say we just can't afford lunches in schools, they're saying those kids' lives aren't worth investing in, even though we've studied this and it's objectively, literally worth it. When Republicans say we can't afford to address climate change, they're saying that the planet just isn't worth the price. It's better to just let it die. As a reminder, our tax brackets are at a historic low right now. When people say that raising taxes will be un-American, it's just a lie. This is why American infrastructure and public services are garbage. Roads kill 40,000 people a year and injure millions? Not worth fixing. Oh, our trains derail every day and sometimes explode and dump toxic waste on a town? Just not worth fixing them. Oh, tens of thousands die every year because we won't fix healthcare? Those people's lives just aren't worth saving. Oh, our public transit's terrible and car dependency is killing us all? There's just nothing we can do. This kind of thinking is poison, and it has infected so many people in this country. Again, nothing the government ever does is without a trade-off. But if we want to pay for something, it's really easy to find the money. The question is just if it's a good investment. But because the Republican Party thinks that all public spending isn't worth it, we're stuck in our current situation. And that's how we end up back here, where the Republicans want to shut down the government so badly that they kicked out their own speaker as revenge for not shutting down the government, even though they don't have a replacement lined up, and even though we already agreed to a spending deal in like May, and where a congressman had to pull the fire alarm to buy some time so that they could pass the continuing resolution, and where now we've got like 30 days left before we have to do this whole thing all over again. I'm sure they're gonna get it this time though. Yeah, just gotta believe they're gonna get it this time. Thanks for listening to my exasperated rant. I'm surprised you made it this far, honestly. I know this channel is usually focused on stuff like transit and urbanism, but frankly, I think a lot of our problems in that area stem from the same toxic austerity mindset. And honestly, this situation was just too stupid not to criticize. We'll be back to dry policy videos about trains very soon. Don't worry. If you want to stick around and find out about that, you can always subscribe. If you're watching this in the future and we manage to avoid a government shutdown, I'm very happy for you. Congratulations. Back here in the past, it does not look good. I really don't see how they're going to make this one work, but we'll find out.